What happens when you throw a bunch of VTubers on an island filled with dinosaurs and tell them that in 30 days time you're coming to hunt them down and capture them? Well, that's exactly what we went to try and find out with this 30 days of hunting event. You see, I have a lot of friends who've never played Ark, but I am a fairly experienced Ark player myself, and I really wanted to see what would happen if we had one person who had a bit of gear and a bit of experience playing what is essentially a massive game of VTuber hide and seek across a huge island. The idea is that players have to keep themselves hidden for 30 days of real world time, whilst also gearing themselves up to take on artifact caves. The winner of the whole event will be the player that has managed to survive the longest, or if there are multiple people who have managed to stay hidden, it'll be the one who has the most cave artifacts. At the end of the 30 days, once a winner is declared, we'll then gather everyone together into a big group and take on the bosses by combining all of our resources, enabling people who've never seen the story before to be able to finish the map and ascend to the next one, at which point we'll reset and start from the beginning again on a brand new map. Now, the hunt doesn't start for the first 3 days of the event to give people a chance to learn the game and get themselves hidden away, but after those 72 hours have passed, the hunt is on. There's also a few rules to make things a little bit more fair, such as not being able to build deep sea bases that you can't see from the surface, or not being able to use flying mounts if you are a survivor, so that you can't just stay on the move. Now, because the intent is for this to be an ongoing series across multiple maps, the idea is that we're going to catalogue it in bite-sized chunks roughly every 1 to 2 weeks with one of these videos. And as always, if you do enjoy this video, make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell, as well as maybe following me over on Twitch, where I stream tabletop and horror games, as well as the occasional big event such as this. But for now, let's get started on the island. So with all this in mind, we created our level 1 beach bob, and got to a brand new day on a brand new server. And we started off the event with a stream where we celebrated the launch of the server alongside a load of the creators who were going to be part of it. And I decided to start my run by doing what a lot of players do to get a few levels, a note run. However, that note run went very poorly. As in, very poorly. Unfortunately, right after I got the first note, I got killed by a Troodon. I then tried to make my way back to it, but even before I managed to reach the second note in the run, I got killed again by another Troodon. It was third time lucky, however, and I managed to get there, make a full run round, and got to around level 70, which is good enough for the start I was trying to get. You see, the idea of this was to level the playing field with the other survivors, as they are allowed to kill me if I attempt to try and capture them, whereas I have to take them alive. This enables me to get things like tranks and narcotics building a little bit earlier, as well as getting myself to the long neck rifle so that I can trank people, and just generally making the hunting process actually viable to do. So we finished our note run, built a raft, and then had a bit of an explore, heading up the west coast of the bay to try and find some turtles to kill for some keratin. The idea of my day one was basically to get a pteranodon and saddle up to go and meet some of the other creators on the island. And we found a low level one on the shore as we were travelling around to the west and got it taming before heading out to find keratin. However, I hit a bit of an issue. We searched and we searched and we searched, but we just could not find any turtles. When we eventually did, our raft got attacked by a raptor that broke the storage box, and I could not find where that bag spawned and lost all of the keratin that I'd previously gathered. So a painful 30 minutes or so of gathering keratin again, and we were back in action. I then decided to take a look to see if I could find a better pteranodon, but the Ark gods were just not in my favour. I did manage to find this level 100, but because I was low on health from the raptor and the turtles, when the bowler broke it almost killed me and chased me down the bay on the raft. So hanging my head in shame after almost dying to a pteranodon, I decided to go back to the one that we tamed earlier, just to use that as a transport early game. And with that, we took to the skies, looking out for some of the survivors on the coast to say hi and help people get started. And on the southern shore, we found TinyDraculina, Wintergust, and ShutteredChaos, who were being harassed by a couple of therizinosaurs that we led away into the bay. It was then that we discovered the voice chatting game wasn't working, and in an attempt to fix it, the game crashed. Thankfully, the survivors at this point were still friendly and kept us alive until we were able to get back in, at which point we took to the skies to find a base spot. And I knew exactly where I wanted to go. Straight past the redwoods and to this lovely cliff overlooking the swamp. And as I approached it, I thought, this looked like a safe area. And then I came around the corner and it was full of therizinosaurs. I like how I said we have arrived, went round the rock, therizinosaur, carnosaur. So I took the time to lead them all off the cliff before getting ourselves a little shack made to get ourselves started. Now I did end up coming back on the game a few hours after the stream ended, but unfortunately I lost the footage. But we built a stone wall around the base, at least most of it, to keep a lot of the nasties out, got a smithy, forge, narcotics and some metal tools going, as well as taming a parasaur and a pair of raptors. Now we're established and able to defend ourselves, the next step was to find this run's workhorse. You see, in this game, hunters have that major advantage of being able to go into the skies, whereas survivors are groundbound. That means that we have an advantage of two key tames, Argentavis for resource gathering, and Tapejara to capture players. The Tapejara is quite an elusive capture, at least for now, so we're going to look at getting an Argentavis. Using a really cleverly designed trap from Toastbloke on YouTube, which uses just a foundation, 3 ramps and 6 doors. Which, thanks to a few levels we put into our Pteranodon, we were able to carry along with our crossbow, trank arrows and narcotics. So we're going to log out for the day, and tomorrow we'll go find ourselves a high level bird so that we can officially be a king of the sky. Well, turns out that plan wasn't going to go the way we thought it was, because we logged in for day 2 to find out that our Pteranodon and one of our raptors had been killed by another raptor that had somehow got around our external wall. I honestly thought this little raised area was going to stop things from getting through, so I didn't need to extend the wall fully, but I was wrong and had to take some time to extend the wall to the edge of the cliff just to path things off the cliff if they tried to get in. But now we had no way of effectively going and getting our RG because we no longer had our Pteranodon, although I was able to save the saddle. So the next job was to go out and catch another Pteranodon. But do you think that I could find one? I looked high and low, but it was like every Pteranodon on the server had despawned for some reason. So feeling utterly defeated, I decided to return to base almost an hour later. And what did we find? A level 60 Pteranodon literally sat inside our interior wall. So we bolted it, tranked it, and got back into the sky. I also took some time while the Pteranodon was taming to beef up some of the defences in the base, but this does mean that it is now RG time. So I took the stone foundation, 3 ramps and 6 walls that I needed for the trap, and got to go in to catch the RG. We checked out the volcano, but there was way too many close together and we weren't really equipped for a fight, so instead turned our attention to the Redwoods mountain, and here we found a few that were pretty isolated. So we set up our trap and got to capturing. Now the first one that we lured over was really low level, so I cut him up, turned him into prime meat, and lured a second one into the trap, which was better, but not by much. But it would have to do for now. We got them taming, went back and made a saddle, and came back to release our new feathered friend, destroying the trap to hide our progress from the survivors. We took the RG back and started our stock of metal, as well as further upgrading our base, getting our rifle and gunpowder production underway, and generally just making a ton of progress. I then sat and thought, okay, what can I use to capture some survivors? And it occurred to me we basically need to hunt people on a taming mount, so why not go catch a Pullman Scorpius? Fast, you're able to fire from its back, its sting tranks targets, and of course it's able to be carried by our RG. So I went north to find one, and eventually found one near the Killer Cove. But while I was taming it, I spotted something out at sea, a raft. Now I don't have a spyglass and there was a Dinosuchus out near it, and because it was early into the event, I really didn't want to bait it into the survivors' raft and grief them, so I couldn't really check who the owner was. But I'm betting on one of the more experienced players as it's a trap raft, so it's probably ItsJustDevi or Wintergust. Now I continued to tame my scorpion, but turned to face the forest, and what do you know, there's also a cabin here that belongs to Wintergust, which means he probably is setting up near the cove. However, it doesn't look like they'll be living out of a raft as they have this shack, so the raft is probably a separate player, most likely Devi. The hunt hasn't officially started yet, so I can't really take a look inside, but I marked the location on my map to come back to when the hunt starts, to either catch Winter or to check inside to see if there's any sweet loot that I can take. After my scorpion, who I named Sting, tamed up, I took him back to my base to start on the next objectives, which was to get onto the tech tree. And unfortunately, getting onto that requires something that I absolutely hate gathering: silica pearls and oil. Because these generally mean braving the ocean, and I am incredibly thalassophobic, so I can't really go into the ocean without having a minor panic attack. So I thought I'd do the next best thing and go and check out some beaver dams for some silica. Finding enough to get me started, and whilst I was out doing this, I also absolutely looked out on a drop that had 95 oil in it. So I returned to my base and got crafting. Now with my RG, 2 Pteranodons, my scorpion, narcotics and trank darts in the making, along with the finished long neck rifle, flak armor, a fabricator and generator, we're in a pretty good place. Now I was going to finish up here, but decided to just do a few final bits for the day. I decided to go and get my generator fueled up for the rest of the week, as well as grabbing the resources I needed to make a cryo fridge and some cryopods. The main reason being that I had a pretty sneaky idea that I wanted to try when it came to knocking out survivors. Because I was thinking back to when I first started this run, when I got knocked out by those Trudons. I thought, what if I get some Trudons, set them on aggressive but to only attack awake players, put them in a cryopod and then throw them through people's windows. I don't know if it'll work, but it sounds like fun to try. So I made a trip to the Arctic to get some oil, where I found the entirety of the oil island except for 2 spawns barren, which means that someone is in the area, and considering I'd seen the raft here earlier, I'm assuming this is probably Wintergust or Devi, as they're the most experienced players on the map and probably are the only ones that know about this oil island, as well as seeing structures from them recently in the area. But again, we can't hunt them yet, so I took the oil that I could back to base and cooked up some gasoline, keeping enough left over for some cryopods. I then hit the mountain to mine some obsidian for some polymer, got it all made, and made me some cryopods and a cryo fridge. I dropped everything off and got another metal run done, so that was all smelting, and while I was standing on my base dropping off my RG, my parasaur alarm started going wild. Turns out there was just 4 Dilophosaur that were right outside of my gate, and since I'm going to be sniping people soon, I took the opportunity to practice my aim with the crossbow, and tranked all 4 of them right outside my gate. Of course I tamed them, because why not, and I called them Travis, 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 and Travis, because of the meme from our recent Silver Scream session. Silver Scream being a TTRPG campaign that I run on Tuesday nights over on Twitch, that had a Jurassic Park session recently, where a Dilophosaur was turned into a venom cannon called Travis. I then put some of my weaker tames in the fridge along with my Scorpion for easy transport. I set the metal from the last metal run smelting, and decided it was time to log out for the day. As day 3 began, I spent a little bit of time in the day just again upgrading resources and doing some basic runs, but on the evening, the hunt began. So I thought I'd swing by where Wintergust shack was and give it a good knock on the front door. But it looks like no one is home, and hasn't been for a while. There was just a single storage box in here with a few bits, but there was some silica pearls which I took because, again, don't want to go in the ocean. So I then went over to check on Devi's raft, and he was indeed there, and this was a very easy capture. But he was actually currently doing a stream over on Twitch and had absolutely no way of defending himself, and as the hunt had only just began, it felt a bit scummy capturing him. So instead, I just decided to leave a billboard right in front of his raft, letting him know that I'd found him. And that's when my Discord began to ring, with an incredibly frustrated TinyDraculina on the line. See, after having tried to get started 5 separate times at 5 separate spawns, she had been attacked by alpha raptors every time, and was getting to the point where she was thinking about actually quitting. But instead of quitting, she decided to give herself up to the hunters, and thus I started the journey to capture our first survivor, who was broken not by the hunt, but by the Ark itself. So I picked her up and brought her back to the hunting base, adding her to the tribe. We are now 2. And after getting back, we started to look at getting some gear, and what should turn up at my base but an alpha raptor. Seriously, Tiny must have some kind of raptor-shaped target on her back, because this is the first one that I'd seen this close to the base. But I was able to kill it with the RG and return back to show Tiny around the hunting lodge. We then spent the rest of the evening getting Tiny a little bit of gear. We did also find this level 130 Diplodocus that was nearby that we tried to trap, however it didn't work. So we killed it and imprinted it on the baby that was with it for a level 132 Diplodocus tame. Now Tiny is still quite low level, again she's very inexperienced in the game, so we decided that we were going to take her on a note run. So we saddled up that second Pteranodon that I caught, ready to take to the skies and head to Crags Island in the south. But before we were able to leave, I spotted something down in the valley. A Thylacolea with a okay level. So, since I had the trap built for the Diplodocus and I had an RG that could pick it up, I flew down, grabbed it and threw it in the trap. Knocked it out, fed it a load of cooked prime meat, and now we have a Thylo. While I was focusing on taming the Thylo, Tiny went out and gathered a load of berries, so we now have a narco berry farm as well. But with my day job looming for the next day, that's all the hunting I had time for, and because of scheduling, I wouldn't really get back on the game for another 48 hours, giving people a lot of time to get themselves going. However, not long after I finished the hunt, I got a Discord message from Devi who had found the billboard I'd left for them. He said that, even though he was offline and streaming, I'd found him fair and square, so to consider him captured. So that makes the hunting group 3, and considering Devi lives on the water and favours the ocean biome, that's our source of silica pearls sorted as well. So as the sun sets on the first day of the hunt, there are 10 survivors remaining. And that is it for part 1 of this video. We will be doing follow-up videos every 1 to 2 weeks with what happens on the island, as it is going to be an ongoing project as we go from map to map. But I hope you've enjoyed this first part as we've set the scene for the rest of the series, and with our next session, hunting is going to start proper. But for now, this is Wyldosis, the Avatar of Terror, signing off saying, stay spooky everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.